Hi, I'm Antonia Cereijido, and welcome to Backstage, where we talk about the latest in entertainment and arts. As part of our continuing Emmy coverage, we're joined today by Goloka Bolte. She's the two-time Emmy-winning casting director for RuPaul's Drag Race, one of my favorite shows. She's worked on lots of different reality TV shows, filling out their casts, and has been nominated 9 times for casting for RuPaul's Drag Race, including this year. That's the most of any unscripted casting director in history. Goloka, welcome to Backstage, and as RuPaul would say, congratulations on your Emmy nomination.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me.
This is awesome. We put out a call out to like the LAist staff about questions, and that's how I found out like half of the staff here at LAist is like huge Drag Race fans. Were you a fan of the show before you were working on it?
I was, and I remember it was so incredibly exciting when I got the call to come in and cast the show. It was very top secret. You know, World of Wonder is like, yeah, we need to bring you in to talk about a project, but we can't say what it is. And we're like, could it be? Could it be? Yeah, came in, sat around, signed an NDA, sat around the conference table, and they're like, we're looking for someone to take over Drag Race. And that was season 6, and the rest is truly her story.
Do you remember the first queen that you cast?
I not exactly the first one, but casting season, like season 6 is incredibly near and dear to my heart. It was like getting to actually see the queens behind the tape and be part of the process and hear all the stories, so much more even than what you see on the show, on the series, was so incredibly special. And it just made me fall in love with the art of drag, with the queens, more and more and more. And we had some really incredible talent on that season. I mean, seeing an audition tape from Bianca Del Rio,
Wow.
and we definitely had some heavy hitters. So
I'm a huge Adore Delano fan.
And Adore, yeah. I mean, that season 6 was and it was like bright-eyed, first time for everything, first time thrown into this world, and of getting to cast the show, and definitely I've been pinching myself ever since that I get to do this job.
That's awesome. I mean, for those who have like no idea what it means to be a casting director for an unscripted TV show, especially RuPaul's Drag Race, like in really basic terms, like what's your everyday life like? Are you going to drag shows every night? Are you watching auditions all day? Like, what are like the basic parts of your job?
It's I wish I could just travel around the country and go to drag shows and find all the queens that way. We do not have the budget for that. We're in a different era of casting. I started out in the golden old days 22 years ago, when everything was like, we were chasing people down with clipboards, on the street.
What was the first thing you cast?
The first thing I cast was, I did a couple small projects, but the first really significant major show I cast was season 2 of Joe Millionaire, which
Wow.
is way, way back in the day. And, we had to travel for it. We didn't have breakdown services. We didn't have Instagram. Like, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have any of these things. We had to we used the yellow pages. I mean, we found festivals. We found
Gen Z
malls.
Yellow Pages is like where everyone's names and numbers
Yeah.
were found. I feel like they probably don't even know what Yellow
You don't
Pages
even know
is.
what that is. They used to get the white pages with like the home phone numbers, and I mean, not everyone even had cell phones back then. I mean, this is way back when. Like, we were chasing people, we were stalking people in malls. We're like, you're cute and fun, want to be on TV? So it's definitely changed a lot. Drag Race, right now we're looking. I'm based in LA, so if I were just going and just like looking at, I do try to take in drag shows as much as I can, and when I travel, I try to go in and see them as well. But a lot of it is online. Like, we look at all the different drag bars and places where they're performing. We look at YouTube. We look at a lot of the more OG queens. They've still got those great Facebook accounts going. We look at TikTok. We look at Instagram. anywhere online, we look at Reddit, we see you guys.
Really?
Yeah, the Reddit threads for Drag Race are something else, and
Yeah, in what way?
I mean, just everyone is always sleuthing. Everyone, is
Trying
always
to
like,
figure out who you're going to cast.
who's going to cast. Everyone's always putting out their dream lists. I love those though.
Really?
I love those. Yeah. Redditors, please keep sending those lists. I'm always creeping through them. We basically are just stalking drag queens in whatever way that we can. And we're getting recommendations and, kind of going down the rabbit hole, looking at different drag families, looking at who's performing at these different drag bars, who's got a regular show, who's got, it's a lot of kind of searching because we want to make sure that we get a lot of diversity and we have drag queens from around the country and, and that we're looking at all different types of drag. So we can't really just cast in one city.
Right.
So,
do you have a favorite drag show here locally to go to?
There are a lot of really great ones in LA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you any tips out there.
Yeah, sorry. I will never pick favorites. That's my.
Is it hard?
Motto.
Is it hard to do you feel like you have to keep it very tight-lipped?
I do. I try not to. I try to always be very careful about how much I'm talking about the casting process and who we're looking at and everything because we are pretty top secret and people are always listening in and trying to figure out, who we're looking at. And I never want to appear like we're favoring one drag family or one city or, one particular club or anything like that because people kind of take it and run with it. And the truth is we're just looking for the best of the best. I mean, charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent all across the board.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, you've cast for a lot of different shows, including Millionaire, Real Housewives, $1 Million Listing, Wife Swap. How is casting for RuPaul's Drag Race different?
What's different about this is for those shows we're looking for, essentially just big characters in a specific world, and for Drag Race we're looking for those big characters. We're looking for people with a story to tell, but we're also looking for so many different talents. So we have to, rather than just doing the typical kind of Zoom interview, and also we have a really small team too. It's me and my two casting directors, Adam Cook and Michelle Reda. We are a tiny team for how big the show has become. And we do it via audition tape. So every queen has to make a tape and we need to see a lot from them because a queen needs to be able to do so much more than just, slay a stage, and a lot of people will see queens perform in their local bars and they're like, oh my God, she needs to be on the show. But you don't know if that queen can act, if she makes any of her costumes, if she can do a character, if she could do Snatch Game, pick up choreography quickly, all of it. And the queens that you see on the show have so much talent. I mean, so in this audition tape that we get from them, we see their acting ability, we see their comedic chops, we see them do the lip syncs, we see, we have to push them a little bit to get out of their comfort zone and kind of see what they come up with. And their sort of brilliance in going through that process, it's like the first challenge of the show.
Right.
And how you tell your own story in that audition tape tells us a lot about how they're going to be able to tell their story on the show and what kind of competitor they're going to be.
Right. One of the questions that somebody asked was how important sewing was, because it seems like that challenge, it's always like there's a couple queens who really cannot sew at all. And so when is it like, all right, this person can't sew, they can come on, how important is the sewing aspect?
I mean, I think that for any competition, the more well-rounded your skills are, the better. But I will say, I make costumes for a hobby.
Oh, cool.
And I actually do know how to sew a little bit, just enough to get through. My favorite thing is just do a rough stitch and hot glue, girl. Get really good with, I'm a beast with a hot glue gun. And you can do almost everything with it. Fabric glue, hot glue. And it's just practice, ideate, try stuff out at home. Practice makes perfect. My first creations were hot messes and, dropping rhinestones everywhere. But, practice makes perfect. And it's a skill that you can just learn at home and get good at. And if you want to be on Drag Race and at some point there is going to be a sewing challenge, there is essentially every season, just work on those glue skills.
Do you have an all-time favorite look from the show?
Oh my God, there's so many over the years. God, like, God, going way back. I mean, Nymphia had some drop dead looks from past seasons. Got Mick.
Yes. Oh my God, I love Mick's
love
looks.
Violet Chachki. It's some amazing looks. I mean, I like so many different ones. In the I'm blanking, of course, because I should be thinking of something from season 17. I'm like.
No, yeah. I said all time.
Next time, give me the questions ahead of time.
How many submissions do you get a year?
We get thousands of submissions every year. And, like I said, we have a very small team. So we spend a lot of time poring over all of these applications and then inevitably the tapes all kind of come in at once because everybody, if you give someone a deadline, they will wait sometimes until the last day. And I'm like, you've had 8 weeks, get the tape in before the deadline if it's ready. But I understand everybody wants to make it perfect. So our last few days, our last, week of casting, we are just back to back to back going through all of these tapes and, cross-eyed in our pajamas, I don't plan anything socially during that time.
Yeah.
It's just we've got to buckle down because we're going to watch every single one of them, and me and my team watch through every single one of them, and we always are we're making sure everyone's applying. We know, we always have an idea of who's coming in. It's a multiple step application process, and we've reached out to our favorites and we're encouraging them. We're please apply. You did such a great job last year. We want to see you again. So, we know they're coming in, but there's also, we never know exactly how someone's tape is going to turn out. And, that's what we need to use them that's what we need to use to present them to RuPaul and to our producers. And, so we need to make sure we've really watched every single one of these tapes, often multiple times, to figure out how are we going to tell different stories? How are we going to keep the show feeling fresh? What's something we haven't seen before? What's an interesting backstory? What's something really heartfelt? How is this person going to represent the series? How are they going to be a voice for their generation and other drag queens going forward? And, and kind of just looking for all of that. And it's a lot of work, but it's the best job ever. Yeah.
So is that the process? You and your team have it whittled down to a certain number, and then you bring it to RuPaul and the producers, and from there they make the final choices. Is that the process?
Yeah. We cut it down. We give them a really healthy list to choose from, and after. Like I said, we've been doing this since season 6. So, we know what they're looking for. We kind of everyone, it's a big family, it takes a village. The producers are incredibly hands-on with casting, as is Ru. And, we whittle it down to a manageable size because you have to remember, there are, I think we're in 20 different countries now. So
wow.
Producers and Ru are busy.
How many different countries do you also do? So you cast the U.S. version. How many other ones do you also cast?
I do Germany, I do Brazil, and I do Mexico.
Wow. And how do you do that in different languages? Yeah.
I have different teams in different countries that are bilingual.
Yeah.
And, drag itself is universal, but it really helps having someone to translate and get the nuances of the humor and the jokes and, Snatch Game. Explain to me why this is funny. I do, I
humor is hard across different,
And and also you have, just local slang and saying. So, I have a local team in the different countries that help with all that. But, as far as how well someone did in the lip sync and, the how their looks are, their choreography, their dance ability, even just the overall top line personality it's universal.
Do you have any stories of things that are maybe lost in translation or that you learned about other countries through the process?
I think that there's I think there are a lot of different nuances in the drag and in the style of drag that you get in different countries. Like Mexico, for instance, is so colorful and creative, and depending on which region you're from, there's a lot of different humor and a lot of different styles. But like seeing like that sort of like like the Mexican culture encompassed in drag is so amazing, and it's so colorful and so creative. Whereas in Germany, like the style is incredible. It's very sarcastic, very dry, a lot less colorful, a lot more black and white, kind of like, nuanced and quirky and like very deadpan.
Yes.
And very odd. And you have to just like an odd in an amazing way that I absolutely love. But you have to kind of settle in and look at the drag from the lens
of that culture.
Of that culture. Yeah. And Brazil is really different too. Like Brazil is like very like, it's very hot, it's very hot there. Like a lot of the drag is like, they're, I think Greg Queen, who is our host of it. I cast her on another show called Queen of the Universe. And I remember she's like, I'm a comfortable queen. Like, I don't like to be hot. And, so their drag is very different. They don't do as much padding, it's not like as elaborate because they like to move and dance and,
Yeah. One thing I'm very curious about is like the creating of an ensemble, because it's not just that you're casting on an individual basis, you're creating a whole team of people that are supposed to create drama, friendships, like all of that. Like, I'm curious in the casting process how much you think of ensemble, and are you like, oh, this is going to be the villain of this series, or this is going to, like do people fit certain archetypes?
Trying to create drama. What? No. We don't really ever cast for the villain. I'm never looking for a villain.
Really? Never?
They cast themselves as the villain. I'm actually never looking for it. I actually think because our message on the show really is, overall about love and inclusivity and loving yourself and, those beautiful workroom moments and all of that. And I think that like when you get the villain arc, a lot of times it's a queen who had some growth. It's not a true villain. It's a queen who had like a growth story and a story arc to kind of get through, and it usually kind of comes through, and there's a great realization and lesson in it. But as far as creating an ensemble, I think that sometimes we will fall in love with queens and they feel really similar to each other, and we're like, oh, we can't have them both on the same season, and it's like you're so torn. You're like, oh, you don't want them to like get mixed up with each other, so you're always it's kind of like an alchemy. Like we have somebody who's really loud and a huge performer and is just gonna it's like death drop and flips and is going to go crazy and be that lip sync assassin on the runway. And then we have the queen that's like, she's doing, the sewing challenge and the creative challenge and the quirkiness, like our Lydia's, for instance, Lydia B. I'm like, can we say butthole on this? I don't know.
You can totally say butthole, yeah.
We were just cracked every time we said her name in casting. Like everyone was like, hee. There's, queens like her that I just have this like innate quirkiness and creativity, and there's this like amazing kind of DIY element to the drag, so we love those. And then we have our Sam stars who are so polished and glamorous, and bring and from the South, and these beautiful like Southern belle pageant queens, and then if you look at Anya just like had this like innate sense of comedy. Like everything that came out of her mouth was funny. It was like, I knew from the moment I saw Anya that, oh, she's gonna slay Snatch Game, obviously. That sense of comedic timing, it just came out of her naturally, which was incredible. And then, Jules was like just this sparkling, bubbly thing. And so you start thinking about all these kind of characters, being together and playing off of each other. And, they're human beings, right? They always still surprise us in the like when we're watching them on the series, but we have an idea. You never know who's going to end up being best friends or the sisterhood that's going to sort of form and all of that. But we have an idea that we're like, okay, this is a nice mix. We feel like they're showcasing different elements of drag and different talents, and we're going to see different strengths and weaknesses from each one. And then as we watch the series, we get to see how they get in their heads, they bring each other up, they support each other, they go through all these personal breakthroughs and all of that. And a lot of that is just on the queens themselves, because once you put them into the competition, it's their story, and they create it.
It's all on them after a certain point. Yeah.
And the producers are also brilliant, and so many talented people, from the choreography, the editing, the hosting, obviously, the judging, the producers, all of them are incredible.
Yeah. One thing that I feel like more contestants have been talking about recently is the expense of going on Drag Race. That they have to bring their own costumes. Sometimes that's very elaborate, and some queens feel pressure to spend has increased over the years as like that we need to up the ante on the show. Has that complicated the casting process? Is that something that y'all talk about in casting? Like, how does that work?
This is why knowing how to sew is a very good thing.
Right.
Because it doesn't have to be an expense. It can be, as somebody who makes costumes myself, you can buy pieces for a very, very small amount of money and make them yourself. But it's, I think for anything where you have these sort of, you have to showcase your drag and it's a competition, there is something attached to it to come in and be the best. And, but I do understand it is challenging. And also, like, auditioning for the show is a really elaborate process because it is such a complicated talent competition and we need to see so much from that. So I'm definitely very aware that it is hard and it is a lot, but I think most queens, if you spoke to them about what they get from it afterwards, is that the platform that they have, the fan base that they have, they're going from performing in their local market. I mean, some already have a bigger following, but a lot of these queens are going from performing in their local clubs to around the world afterwards. Right. So I think it is ultimately a worthy expense.
Well, that's something that is also very interesting is like in early seasons, it was rare that there would be a contestant that would come in with a huge audience. Whereas like now, some of the queens come in with big audiences built already on social media. I'm curious, how social media has shaped the kinds of contestants who come on, whether the following is something that you all pay attention to when casting.
Yeah, we don't care about the following at all. I don't care if you have no followers at all. The one thing I would say is because we do so much of our scouting virtually, it helps if you at least have a social media page so that we can find you. If you want to be on the show, make it easy for us to find you, because we're looking for you, right? And but as far as like we're not doing any kind of calculation. We're like, oh, this person has a big TikTok following. Like, let's put them on the show. We really want to find the person that is talented, has a story to tell, is, doing drag in like a fun, fresh, unique way. But the size of the following does not matter at all, and it's I think if you look back on the show, the person who has the biggest following doesn't necessarily do the best on the show. It's the best drag queen who does the show. It's about doing the work, practicing, working on your costumes and outfit, really developing your drag character, making sure you can do at least a couple good characters for Snatch Game. I'm like, come on, girls.
Snatch Game seems so stressful. Who would you do for Snatch Game?
My God. Oh, that's a good one. God, I don't know. I'd choke and get voted off. I mean, honestly, I'm behind the camera for a reason. I'd be out. I'd be lip syncing for my life.
What song would you lip sync?
I'd be working really hard. Oh my God. I don't have very many, like current songs that I'm amazing at, but I'm like, I can really crush the Little Mermaid part of your world. Like, That song just spoke to me when I was growing up.
They should put that on the show. That'd be really fun.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like everybody can do like a full, everyone, I mean, I'm in my mid to late 40s, and I feel like all the girls in my generation can do like fully act out that song. I think we all, it really, it hits deep.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, I don't know who I would do for Snatch Game. I get like stressed watching Snatch Game. I'm like, oh my God, who would I do? Maybe like Katie Couric. Because whatever. We don't need to get into that.
I know, but I was like, but it's like, that's when RuPaul will come through, but like, can you make her funny?
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I know. Every time you ask that, I always feel bad for the queens. I'm like, they're sweating.
Yeah. No, it's Snatch Game is hard, but I'm like, but also like if you want to be on the show and you want to win the show, try some things out at home,
I will say sometimes I am shocked when they like don't have a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is every year.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm wondering,
but but it's also like all the drag queens have different talents,
right?
Like some of them, they are those lip sync assassins. They're so creative; they can make anything out of anything, But like being able to go and do a comedic character
is totally
and
different.
embody it, and oh my God, was it Jules Sparkle? Sparkles did this year with Lady Bigfoot was brilliant. And she did an amazing time, and like make up a weird character that's like an accent that you feel comfortable with. But yeah, it's hard. Like I don't know who I would do. I'll probably in like 20 minutes think of someone amazing. I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally do that character.
Was there a contestant that most surprised you from audition to actual performance on the show?
I feel like they're, I feel like they pretty much kind of showed, who they were in the audition. I'm always like, I hate it. I hate that any one contestant has to go home first. And in a lot of seasons, it's not who I thought it was going to be. And I'm sad for them, but also for the viewers, because they didn't get to really get to know that queen.
Right.
And it's but we put on these casts and they're like, 13 queens, 4, I forget how many we had on season 17, but like they're all amazing. They're all amazing, and and it's such a shame. But like if I were producing the show, I'd be like, let's keep them all until the very end and just like tally up the points. But I don't think the viewers really want that. But
Maybe the drama, yeah.
Because I have gotten to know that queen, whether she's auditioned, whether it's her 10th audition or her first one, like I know so much more about their story and what she's capable of,
right,
and everything. So I've definitely over the years been really surprised to see who goes home first, and really sad to see anybody go home really ever, but first for sure.
I imagine that'd be stressful. Yeah.
I'm
curious about your post-mortem process. This was a question also that was somebody on the staff asked, and I was like, oh, that's such a good question. Like, yeah, especially like if there were strong reactions or criticisms from fans had towards certain casting. Like after a season, does your team get together and think, okay, this was great, this is what we got to do different? Like what's the like after a season post-mortem process like?
I think that we definitely talk with the producers, and it's like small adjustments, but we do try really hard to make sure every season feels diverse and feels inclusive and really feels like we're capturing all these different elements of the drag community. But I don't think we're not always perfect at it. And there's also a more complicated process that goes into putting someone on a reality show. Sometimes people can't do the show because of, the timing. Sometimes, we make sure everyone goes through a psych evaluation and a background check, and not 100% of the people pass. So sometimes the cast doesn't look exactly like we initially pictured it. I mean, that's true of every single show, right?
Was that psych process there from the beginning, or that was incorporated later?
The psych process has been part of every reality show that I've ever worked on in the last 22 years. I'm assuming it was there from the beginning for Drag Race, because it's a normal part of all unscripted series. We do a lot of through our diligence process, we want to make sure everybody is mentally healthy enough to compete, and that's really, really important. And is also not wanted for manslaughter,
Yeah.
and it's, or any kind of crazy thing in their background. But, I think definitely we always kind of try to adjust and also figure out how we can be better every season, and some shifts but I think like it's more really about like, what are new stories we can tell next season. And, I like to think we don't ever finish a season and be like, oh, we just failed on that one.
Yeah.
We've been feeling pretty good about it. We love the queens. I've loved every season that I've worked on. So
That's awesome. A lot of people talk about reality TV as a guilty pleasure that they enjoy. I wonder how you think about that. And do you watch reality TV yourself?
I do, and I don't know why anyone should feel guilty about watching it. Definitely do not feel guilty about watching Drag Race. There should be no guilt there. That is time well spent. Thank you very much.
I agree.
I mean, Drag Race, like it has everything. There's so much like human emotion. There are these great relatable stories. There's dancing, there's singing, there's talent, there's comedy, there's costume creation, and there are like heartfelt moments that got this last season. Definitely tears. This last season, I mean, I ugly cried when they did the makeover challenge with their families. Like I sat at home, I was watching it by myself, like just bawling my eyes out. I think that's like one of my favorite episodes ever that we've done on the show. But yeah, definitely it should not be a guilty pleasure. But I think that there is, sometimes like when I need to wind down at the end of the night, I binge watch Love Island.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
But
after like 6 episodes in a row, I do get where the guilty, like I'm like, my eyes are starting to cross and I'm like, all right, you got to walk away, Goloka. You got to turn it off.
Okay. Well, I'm curious because so like, for instance, if I listen to like a podcast in my head, I'm like, oh, I would have moved this that way. I would have done this. Like as a casting director, are you watching Love Island? You're like, I wouldn't have cast that person. I'd cast this kind of person. Like, do you find yourself like in that mode when you're watching?
I don't, and I'm actually, maybe some people have it, but there's I actually think they do a really good job casting that show. The casting director is actually a very old friend of mine.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm always like, snaps. But because it's entertaining and, but like, it's silly and fun. But I also like, I work in the industry, I've been working in the industry for 22 years. I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm watching something and I'm just like, that was a weird camera angle, or like, nah, It happens every now and then when I'm able to separate it. And I like, if I turn something on, I just want to be entertained and I want to have a good time watching it.
And I think that's a really good skill to have. Yeah. To just like, be able to be the spectator, and probably helps you in your actual job, because then when you are watching the audition tapes, you're not in like, you're like, how would I experience this as somebody who's like watching?
Yeah. And it's like, no one's paying me to be a critic too. I'm like, I'm there to have fun. So I'm like, I'm not going to watch something if I don't enjoy it. And if I watch it, I'm not going to critique it. I'm like, if something is like truly terrible, I really like to, I like shows that feel really genuine, and the one thing I do notice working in the industry is when things are a little bit over edited, and sometimes you'll see that, where you realize you're like, I know working in the industry, we're like, oh, they chopped out half the story, and you're like, what really happened there?
Really?
And there's but like, only a little bit. I think it's like, why be a critic? Why rain on everyone's parade? Like, watch it, enjoy it. And if you don't like it, do something else with your time.
This is a very broad question, but you've been working in reality TV for 22 years. What's like the biggest difference you think between when you started and now in terms of like what reality TV is?
Oh God, yeah.
I know that's like a huge question.
Yeah,
but like I feel like reality TV, it's taken on such a bigger role in just American life, global life. I mean, we're watching like shows that were reality shows that started in other countries that now are here. Like I feel like it's such an important cultural maker. Yeah.
Oh my God. I think, I know, I actually love that question. And it's funny what you said about like the guilty pleasure. And I think it has actually become less of a guilty pleasure. And I think that there, like in the early days, there was almost this like, oh, you went on a reality show,
Yeah.
and now everyone is like really excited to be part of it. So many celebrities have come and done reality shows or are hosting reality shows or producing their own. And it's created entirely new types of celebrity, and I think people watch them and they love to like get to know people that they relate to and that are just like them, and there's this whole kind of like human like human element of how like the story that plays out on TV, like people see themselves and they're like themselves reflected back, and like, and I think that it's a different type of fandom actually, because they really know these people. And I think that like, people who are fans of people on who go on a reality show are a different type of fan, because they're not just the fan of the character that they play in a film. They're a fan of that person.
I am a huge reality TV watcher, and to me, it like as like a critical theory girly. Like I saw somebody in New York did an event that was like Love Island as Stanford prison experiment like like comparison, and I was like, that's extremely my vibe. And that blurring of like what is authentic and what is not is like so interesting to me, but it also sometimes gives me like vertigo. I don't know if like working in reality TV you ever have like the what is real moment. So I don't know.
Well, I would say like one of the things that you understand about how the production of reality TV works was like from working behind the scenes is that like you'll watch things and you're like, how could that be real? Like how could they really be feeling that way, or for it could be that dramatic? And I would say that like, so you talk about the Stanford prison experiment, right? Like about who we turn into when you sort of like are put into this role and have your outside influences limited. So if you imagine like, you're going on Survivor, you're going on Love Island or on anything, and your entire world for the duration of filming is that competition and is the people that you're with. And you are like, you're on camera with them, you're competing against them. You are, and how many times during our real lives do we ever do anything where we're 100% focused on the people that we're with all day, every day, and we're just focusing on one thing, one objective, one goal, whether it's to win, to fall in love, to do all those things. And it's an engineered bubble,
right?
Because of budgets and time frame. We can't film with everyone for a year. But a lot of story and a lot of real reactions happen in a really tight amount of time. And I've worked on set and worked as a producer in the past, and you see it happening, and you see people themselves being surprised that they're even feeling a certain way and kind of going through it. And you see these best friendships forming. And, we take real people, real situations, real personalities, and we just like, instead of it being this big, we put them into like a world this big. And so everything happens really quickly and in a really intense way.
Yeah.
So, it is real, but it's also engineered for timing and, because we do obviously have to get into the nitty gritty and make a TV show.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all like psychological experiments, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. It is a fascinating world.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've learned something it's like very specific about human nature working in reality TV for 2 decades?
I actually like one of the things that I love about this job and that I'm so grateful for having this job is how much I've learned about like not just human nature, but about people from all walks of life, all communities, and because like I've cast shows that I've had a very varied career, so I absolutely love casting Drag Race. I'm finishing up casting for a CBS chef series right now. So I'm in the world of, high-end cuisine and fine dining right now. But I've also cast swamp people, F boy island, getting into the mind of the F boy and what makes them tick.
Yeah.
But you really get in and you start to really understand like how people's reactions and the way they look at themselves and the way they treat other people, how it comes from their relationship with their parents and where they grew up and what they were exposed to. And it gives you a lot of compassion for the human experience and for people around the world. I really, or people who come from all walks of life, and it really makes you kind of just like, I feel like it's made me a more compassionate and understanding person, and that's an experience that like I wouldn't trade for the world. I wish I could I wish I could sort of, put that into like distill it into like a little pill that I could share with everyone. And, going through the process of casting Drag Race and hearing the stories of thousands of queens and, and the similarities and the differences and the struggles and everything that they've gone through and struggles in and not in either having amazing acceptance and how beautiful that story is when parents, have this beautiful, bright, LGBTQ, amazing, creative, colorful child, versus, the stories of people who are, were kicked out of their homes and are scared to come out first as gay, then as a drag queen, and then even more so as trans, and and what they've gone through and the, the adversity that they've come over and or that they've gone through. And I wish more people could really understand that these are beautiful human beings just like us, and really kind of get to know. And that more people in this country and in the world would understand that these are just beautiful human beings, that deserve to exist and be heard and be loved and accepted.
So, actually, here at LAist, we produced the Academy Museums podcast, and we did one season dedicated to casting because there was this big controversy about whether they would create a casting category. And last year they announced that they are going to create a category for casting. But one of the things that came up a lot while we were doing the reporting for that series was that there was like a huge debate and controversy in the world about whether casting really counted as a skill. And one of the critiques that we would hear was that it's not really a skill. It's like just people who have like larger Rolodexes. So I'm curious for you, like, one, what do you think about that controversy? And two, like, what is it that you feel that people maybe don't understand about your work as a casting director?
Yeah, I mean, whoever said that casting of any kind is not a skill, can suck it. Like that is incredibly incorrect. I think for scripted, I can't speak to that as well. But I mean, a lot of times you hear stories about these scripted casting directors that see like an unknown actor and they're and I like when I've done scripted auditions, like you see these people and they might be talented, but they might have like gotten so nervous because this is their big break and they're struggling to pay their rent and they break out in hives and forget their lines. And sometimes it's like being a great casting director is saying, hey, let's like take a breather and let's try it one more time because they saw a little bit of something there. There was like a little glimmer and that person ends up being a superstar. And, I think that like, it's being able to kind of like sort of, almost kind of like squint your eyes and see something that other people can't. And to keep digging until you find the right fit. It's not just about like, we've all seen films that had every big name actor in it, and sometimes they're not the best, and sometimes it's these complete unknowns that are incredible, and that's an incredible skill, is finding those people and getting them to a place where they get a good audition. And with unscripted casting, our process is completely different. There are a few similarities, but we have to find the people first. So, I like to say it's kind of like investigative journalism. We do a lot of stalking. There's like we can find, we're like really good at finding people. So we're like, okay, like, what does this person do? What city do they live in? What's their job? Like, there's their LinkedIn. Okay, here's where they worked before. I mean, so we have to first find the people, and then we have to figure out how to get a hold of them and get them on the phone using every avenue that we can. But like luckily I started out using the phone book, so it's a lot easier now than it used to be. And then we've got to figure out if they're right for the show, do a pre-interview them. pre-interview with them, get them on camera and get them comfortable on camera. Now, some people are just stars and they just sort of like bounced out of the womb, really talkative and ready to go. And some people need to be like, they need to have their nerves calmed down and they need to be pulled, have that personality pulled out of it. And not everybody knows who their character is. Not everybody knows how to sit down and be like, I'm this person, I'm the lovable best friend to everybody, I'm this person, I'm the hype, the ultimate hype man. And
Do you feel like you can see that in them?
yes. And I think it's and part of it is just knowing how to, like, you really learn a lot about how to look at someone's body language and kind of, like I noticed them start to stiffen up a little bit when I asked that question about their parents, what's going on there. Or I noticed that they really came out of their shell when I asked them about this hobby. Like, let's dig into that. And then you'll see somebody get really comfortable on camera and then they just completely, like, their personality opens up and then it's like a completely different person than sat down, shy and awkward at the beginning of an interview. So it's a lot about like being able to pull that out. So for an unscripted casting director has to be good at finding people, good at identifying and figuring out quickly who that person is, and also figuring out ways to like to sort of make that person, put that person at ease and make them kind of reveal their story and say who they are. Because we're not just giving them a script and saying, say this back to me. That works extremely badly in unscripted.
It has to come like naturally.
It has to come naturally.
Is there an example of like a queen that at the beginning was shy or you didn't see their personality and then you were able to pull it out of them and now they're like a big star from the show?
I would say like we don't really pull, in Drag Race they do because they audition via a self-tape. So they have to kind of be able to sort of show their personality and they self-interview them. So, they do the audition tape and then they get whittled down to the finalists, and their next step from that is we hand them over to producers and they go right to they do a pre-call with the interview. So generally by the time with drag queens specifically, like, generally by that time they're pretty good talkers already for the most part. So, and there's, I wouldn't say not to, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a good example. I've definitely had some, oh my God, I'm trying to think of who, I'm completely blanking out on it, but there was somebody whose narration this year was like, I was completely obsessed with. I know Jules and Anya were really, really funny. Corey King was so funny. I mean, I actually feel like the season 17 queens, a lot of them, like their OTF interviews were so hilarious to watch. And I was like, just the narration on the show is just giving me life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Goloka, thank you so much for being on Backstage. I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. I still like, to this day, like I said, I pinch myself. It's amazing being with Drag Race as it's gone through the journey from Logo to VH1 to MTV and kind of, like seeing more people like be curious about the show and want to know more about the show and feature it is like we're so grateful for it and thankful for being invited to talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you.